never did attend one of his own campaign rallies. There had been speculation that three-time incumbent Abdelaziz Bouteflika would show at the weekend. Instead, in a nation that so far steered clear of the Arab Spring, it was on state television that voters got a glimpse over the weekend of the man who spent a good part of last year in France recovering from ill health. He's nonetheless the heavy favourite in Thursday's election.
It was a rare glimpse of the president, only his second public appearance during his campaign for re-election. Dogged by ill health since a stroke last year, Bouteflika's campaign has been mainly fronted by his former prime minister. Filmed in discussion with the Spanish foreign minister on an official visit, the Algerian president used his time in front of the cameras to attack, without directly naming him, his main adversary Ali Ben Fliss, who he accuses of inciting violence.
Il y a un code déontologique duquel on ne doit pas s'écarter. Qu'un candidat vienne menacer les wali et les autorités de faire attention à leur famille et à leurs enfants en cas de fraude, ça veut dire quoi? C'est du terrorisme à travers la télévision.
Widely considered as Bouteflika's main threat at the polls, Ali Ben Fliss has long denounced what he sees as the risk of fraud at the heart of this election.
La fraude est mon principal adversaire.
Fraud is my main enemy. I'd like to remind you all that in 2004, fraud was the victor. The loser was democracy. I've prepared 60,000 observers for the 60,000 polling stations. They will be there to monitor, to control, and to denounce any fraud.
23 million Algerians are eligible to vote in Thursday's ballot, with 6 candidates to choose from. Bouteflika remains the firm favourite to win for what would be his 4th term in office after already being at the helm of Algeria for 15 years.
All right, well, joining us now is journalist Farouk Atiq. Last Thursday, you were with us in the debate. Thanks for being back with us here on France 24. At the time, you told us that perhaps there would be Bouteflika showing up on the campaign trail before it was over, but it didn't happen in the end. How do Algerians feel about it?
Glad to talk to you again, Francois. Well, Algerians feel that there is a kind of we have been talking to Abdelaziz Bouteflika militants yesterday with this big rally, the last of the campaign, and most of them told us that they are very disappointed because they have been told that there will be a surprise, that probably the president will be talking not even on the scene, but with a kind of Skype communication, and it didn't happen, at least. So there is a kind of frustration even inside Abdelaziz Bouteflika camp, yeah, of course.
It's very interesting, Farouk, because as you know, on this side of the Mediterranean, there's a lot of Algerian citizens who live in France. We didn't expect there to be this much interest in the campaign, but the more Bouteflika was absent, the more people's interest was perked. Is it the same where you are?
No, I think so, because even if he's not really present on the scene, he's very present on television. He was criticizing his challenger, Mr. Ali Ben Fliss, his former prime minister, but actually he's exactly doing the same, trying to convince the population that he's a man capable of ruling the country, but actually he's not. Well, it's a figure of the past. And Abdelaziz Bouteflika has been criticized, of course, because there is a possible fraud coming next Thursday. You know that 25 million people here in Algeria are expected to vote, and probably the most important surprise will be coming with the participation. But we are not waiting for a massive presence of the electors. We are waiting, apparently, observers and experts in Algeria are saying that there will not be more than 30, maybe 35% of participation, and it will be a shame for the ruling president.
30 or 35% participation. Could there be a surprise? Does Ali Ben Fliss, what, he got like 6% last time he ran? Could he really challenge Bouteflika?
Well, to be honest, it's a possibility. It's the second one. The first one, of course, is that Abdelaziz Bouteflika wins with a kind of 70% of the votes, because it would be unthinkable that he will be again winning with a 90% of vote, as the participation should not be so important. But there is this possibility of that Ali Benflis could be a winning challenger, as he was, first of all, he's a former prime minister during the 90s, and also because he's claiming 60,000 people, observers all around the country. So there is a force, there is a campaign force behind him. So it's a possibility, I think, yeah.
Ali Benflis, 60,000 assessors. They say he has, a private plane to do his campaign with 70 journalists on board. He's got a lot of means at his disposal for an opposition candidate.
Well, some of the observers here say that he's not really an opposition candidate, but because he was during the 90s former prime minister of Abdelaziz Bouteflika, so he knows exactly how behind the scene how this country is ruled. But there is something, and there's one question that everybody here is asking: is how is it possible that he has so many, I'm sorry to say that, cash behind him, so he's capable of having his own plane, like you said, of having all these people, all this staff around this campaign? And it's a good question, actually, because even if he was a prime minister in the past, he's not really someone that we can say he's not a northern of anything. He's a former politician. He's always active during the years 2000, but he's not a rich man, like we could say. And in front of him, there is a huge campaign of Abdelaziz Bouteflika with lots of millions of dollars in front of him. So the question is, how is Ali Benflis capable? Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Farouk, one of the questions that has been posed, there have been insinuations that perhaps there are people within the high halls of power who support Benflis, and there is a kind of a backdoor rivalry going on within the high circles of power. There's a historian, Mohamed Arbi, who's quoted as saying, once upon a time, military security was the political party of the army. Now the army has its parties. In other words, that there's divisions within the high halls of power. Absolutely.
And 2 months ago, there was something happened in Algeria, which is unthinkable during the last years, is that there is a fight inside the army, like you said, between the DRS, the Department of Security, is the secret service of Algeria, and some of the most important figures of the FLN, ex-FLN, which is the ruling party here in Algeria. And it was unthinkable, let's say, just months ago, but now there is this speech which is opening, and some of the important figures of the FLN party are now probably trying to make those militaries who are representing the past of Algeria politically, meaning they are trying to push those militaries away from the political scene. But the question to ask is, why do they do that now? And why didn't do that during the past years?
All right, so they didn't settle their scores before going to the election. Farouk Atiq, final question for you then. Is there something like a power vacuum right now?
I think so. Because like I told you before, we are expecting a 30-35% participation, that's all. And there is a vacuum, as the Algerian people are not interested at all to this election. They were not interested neither to the last election in 2004, and this vacuum is probably because the most of the candidates of this presidential election have not talked about the important questions of Algeria at the moment: unemployment, problem of houses, and because there is a huge problem of houses here in Algeria, and they didn't talk at all about these problems. They were talking about it was only fights between that candidate and the other one, etc. So the vacuum is here. I think they didn't talk at all about what is very important and what is concerning the Algerian people. I mean, unemployment and the problem of housing here in Algeria.
All right, Farouk Atiq, many thanks. We will continue to cover the build-up to that election in, I guess, the one state you could say, North Africa, along with perhaps Morocco, where there was not an Arab Spring, but where, as you can see, there are a lot of issues in the build-up to Thursday's vote. France 24's team is there. Coming up here on France 24, we'll have more news for you, plus all the day's business and sports. Stay with us.